But we won. Teaching, the trophy, Victor's complaint, the punishment for cheating, no shortcuts, trash. You did cheat then, said Coach as he sat leaning into the aisle. He sat on the seat across from Slade in the back of the bus. He lurched along with everyone else as the bus screeched to a halt at yet another set of train tracks. The driver opened the bus door, the brakes went whoosh, and the engine roared again as we pulled away. Yeah, said Slade, a big grin on his face. But we won. He raised the trophy in his hands above his head. The back of the bus cheered. Vidstein, you idiot, we won a race. I'm a senior, damn it. I don't care how we did it. A sad look crossed Coach's face. I'm not teaching you right, he said quietly, almost to himself. And then I was sure the waterworks were turning on. But instead of growing weepy, Coach got determined. He seemed almost angry. I'm not teaching you right, but I'm going to teach you now. He shook his head once firmly as if making a promise to himself. He pointed at the trophy in Slade's hands. We're sending that trophy back. We didn't do it right. Even Leonardo and Popeye, normally off in their own little buddy world, from 7 seats up, were leaning over the backs of their seats, listening. The girls in the front chattered on as normal, totally oblivious to the drama playing out behind them. But Coach, said Bowden, nobody's going to care anymore. He laughed and shook his head. It's over. The day's done. I mean, don't we just give all our trophies away at the end of the year anyhow? He reached over the back of his seat toward Slade. Slade handed him the foot-tall overall team champion trophy. It was gold with a vertical strip of sparkling blue plastic, a runner leaning forward in mid-stride on top. It was just like the ones I used to polish and race against each other back in my uncle's childhood bedroom. But it ain't the trophy that counts, said Coach. It's what it took to get it. It's what it means. He reached across and Bowden handed him the trophy. And this one means the wrong things now. It means cheating. Ah, screw me, sighed Victor from the seat in front of Coach's. Of all goddamn adults to tell me endless bullshit about right and wrong, you're the last one I want to hear it from. Coach sat the trophy down on the bus floor. What the hell you mean by that? He said. First of all, said Victor, you're a complete mess yourself. That's right, said Coach. I'm a mess. What of it? I was suddenly very tense. I never heard a kid and an adult talk the way Victor and Coach were talking, especially in the midst of a group of kids listening. You got kicked out of your house, didn't you? My heart leapt in my chest. I expected Coach to glare at me. I prepared to defend myself. I hadn't told anyone. I had kept my promise. But Coach didn't glare at me. He stared right at Victor. The look on his face, it wasn't angry. It was sad. Lay off, Victor, Slade growled. Agreed, said Bowden, his eyes narrow slits. Swart nodded too. Lay off, Coach, he said. Everyone was leaning toward the back of the bus, listening in. It was like some weird intervention, except I couldn't figure out yet upon whose behalf we were intervening, and over what. I won't lay off, said Victor angrily, because I was going to say next. And it seemed suddenly that Victor was overwrought, his face twisted up a little. He was fighting something inside himself that he didn't want to let out but had to. The second reason I don't want to hear from you how we did wrong when we actually won a race is because you're the only adult I actually care what you think, because you're the only one who actually cares about me. And we never won anything before. Victor glanced down, unable to keep his eyes up. I wanted to win one for you, Coach. Coach's face softened. He glanced down himself and seemed to be collecting his thoughts. He looked up. The thing is, Coach said softly, I ain't been teaching you right. And I don't mean because Slade did some crazy-ass stunt to try to win the race. Everyone laughed a little when Coach said crazy-ass. It was a Slade and Victor word. Victor smiled upon hearing Coach appropriate it. I ain't been teaching you right because you didn't believe you could win that race without the stunt. Understand? The faces turned toward Coach became thoughtful. Someone coughed. Look, said Coach, going into them woods, we had 4 guys in the top 15. 4 guys, he said. And that invite ain't half bad. Ridgeline and some of the others ain't there, sure, but it ain't bad. And them woods was only half a mile until the finish. Even if Slade don't do his airplane impersonation. Coach held out his arms to his sides in imitation of Slade, and everyone chuckled again. We're still going to win. It took a moment to consider what he'd said, but it was true. We 4 up front hadn't been dying. In fact, we may have fought to our places without Slade's maneuverings. And Chambers had been held up in the pack behind Slade. Who knew what he would have done without the hindrance? Slade, Coach continued, did that airplane thing wear you out? You feel shot when you came out of those woods? I'd blown my wad like Champ does, said Slade, 5 to 6 times a day. Hyder, to my disgust, grinned and gave him a thumbs up. Everyone laughed again. Well, if Slade gains 5 spots because he doesn't wear himself out holding everybody back, and if the Bluebirds can outkick some people on their own, which I'm sure, he glanced at us, they could have, then we're still holding this trophy on the bus ride. But them other teams on their bus rides home ain't talking about how we stole it. And he was right. And even more, he went on, if we won it straight out, no nonsense, you'd know it yourself, that you got it the right way, that you earned it fair and square. The back of the bus was quiet. You go about cheating in life, boys, the punishment's in the cheating itself. Remember that. When it comes to cheating, nobody's got to catch you. Nobody's got to know about it, because the punishment for cheating is built in. He nodded emphatically. Hyder glanced at me then. He stared at my black eye, unconsciously touching his own face. Coach went on. The punishment's the feeling that you couldn't have done whatever it was you did without cheating. That's what eats at you. And then, over time, that feeling becomes a belief that you can't do nothing good without cheating, that you ain't up to it. That's the punishment for cheating. Coach handed the trophy back to Slade. I may be a mess, he said quietly, pointing over the seat at Victor. Then he smiled and looked directly at me. Hell, I am a mess. In the goddamn race of life, I'm at the back of the pack. He turned his attention back to the group. Ain't no doubt about it. I told K1 the other morning, my wife hates me, my kids worry about me, and they're too little to have to worry about their old man. He covered his mouth for a moment with a shaking hand before he went on. My car's about ready to blow up. I don't even think my dog likes me much. We all smiled, although it wasn't happy what he was saying, and then his face grew tight and his jaw clenched once. But I'm earning it every step of the way. His voice was as tight as his jaw. He was looking right into Victor's eyes. As best I can, I'm earning it fair and square. Victor nodded, his mouth tight as well. I'm earning what comes to me, son, and I know there ain't no shortcuts. He smiled, breaking the tension slightly. Lots of trapdoors for a guy as crazy as me. No shortcuts. Slade rose from his seat, the trophy gripped in his hand. He set it down under the bus window, and in spite of the cold and blustery rain outside, slid the window down with a clack. He picked the trophy back up off the seat with one hand, and before any of us knew what he was doing, he threw it out the window. It was suddenly gone, disappeared. Then he slid his window back up with a click and sat back down. He didn't say a thing. That's littering, said Yost, finally breaking the silence. He didn't say it judgmentally. He was just stating a fact in order to say something. It was junk, said Slade.